James the banker, they wanted his money, but his heart chose the fruit seller. Have you ever met people who claim to love you, but are actually in love with what you can do for them? People who see your success not as something to celebrate, but as something to exploit. People who disguise greed as affection. People who mistake your kindness for weakness. This is the story of James. A successful banker. A devoted son. And a man who was forced to choose between the woman everyone wanted him to marry and the woman his heart truly loved. It is a story about wealth and poverty. About appearances and reality. About greed and contentment. And about a market girl who proved that true value can never be measured by social status. James worked as an accountant in one of the most respected banks in the city. At 28 years old, he was already successful. He earned a good salary. He was respected by colleagues. And because of his position, many people believed he had influence within the banking system. His mother, Aduni, was extremely proud of him. But Aduni had a dream. A very specific dream. She wanted her son to marry into wealth. Not just any wealth. The wealth of her longtime friend, Madam Bintu. Madam Bintu was known throughout the city for her luxurious lifestyle. Designer handbags. Expensive parties. Lavish vacations. Luxury cars. Everything about her life was designed to impress others. Her daughter, Maggie, was no different. Maggie had grown up believing that money existed to be spent. The more expensive something was, the more she wanted it. If someone bought one designer bag, Maggie wanted 3. If someone hosted a party, Maggie wanted a bigger one. If someone drove a luxury car, Maggie wanted the newest model. And because of this, both Maggie and her mother were delighted when Aduni suggested that James and Maggie should become a couple. To outsiders, it looked like a perfect match. A wealthy banker. A wealthy socialite. 2 respected families. But beneath the surface, a different motivation existed. Madam Bintu and Maggie were drowning in their own extravagant lifestyle. Their spending habits constantly exceeded their income. And they believed James could solve their problems. As a banker, they assumed he could influence loan approvals, arrange special treatment, open doors, and provide the financial support needed to maintain their expensive way of life. To them, James was not merely a future husband. He was a financial opportunity. A solution to their lifestyle. A working bank account. Meanwhile, every morning on his way to work, James passed through a busy market. And there, beneath a faded umbrella, sat a young woman named Bola. She sold fruits. Unlike everyone around her, she spent her free moments reading textbooks. There was something different about her. Something quiet. Something dignified. Something genuine. While others were busy attracting attention, Bola seemed focused on building a future. James, who loved eating fruits as part of his daily diet, usually stopped by to buy fruits from her. But beyond the fruits, James was always impressed by the young woman's politeness and behavior towards him each time he is buying fruits from her. He was also impressed by the fact she always had books with her virtually every time. Before long, James found himself stopping at her store almost every day, not just for fruits but for friendly conversations. Their conversations became longer. Their friendship became deeper. And slowly, his admiration began to grow. Eventually, James told his mother about Bola. His mother was furious. His mother immediately objected. "A market girl?" she asked. "James, you cannot be serious." But James saw something his mother refused to see. Character. His mother began to drum it into ears the reason why he must marry Maggie. "You must do my wish," his mother told him. Pressure from both families intensified. Eventually, James agreed to spend time with Maggie. Partly to satisfy his mother. Partly to determine whether he was being unfair. and partly because he wanted certainty before making an important decision. At first, Maggie appeared charming, beautiful, confident, sophisticated. But the longer he spent with her, the more troubling things became. Every conversation revolved around money. Expensive shopping that regularly gulps huge sums of money. Maggie would want to go on expensive vacations that can put James' account in the red. Parties. Luxury. Status. Nothing was ever enough. One day she wanted a designer handbag. The next week she wanted a luxury vacation. Soon afterward she wanted expensive jewelry. And every request came with an expectation. James can handle it. James will pay. James will arrange it. Then came the request for loans. At first they were subtle. Madam Bintu would casually mention a business opportunity, a property investment, a temporary financial challenge. Then she would smile and say, "Surely James can help." Soon, both mother and daughter began pressuring him constantly for financial bailouts. Madam Bintu and Bod would always tell him, "Can't you speak to someone at the bank? Can't you fast-track the process? Can't you arrange something special? You're a banker, after all." James felt trapped. The pressure became exhausting. The expectations never ended. The more he gave, the more they demanded. Nothing satisfied them. Nothing was enough. Dinner at Eco Hotel. New iPhone when Maggie's old one started hanging. Hair money. Money for clothes and shoes. Rent money when Madam Bintu said their landlord was disturbing them. "You're the man," Madam Bintu would say, patting his shoulder. "Maggie deserves the best. Don't let her suffer." James nodded. He wanted to be the best. He wanted Maggie to be proud of him. But the request never stopped. Maggie would tell him, "Mommy needs a new freezer, a TV, and a washing machine. The old ones are disgracing us. I need 300K for my friend's wedding. I must stand out. James, can't you just upgrade my car? This Corolla is making me look like a poor woman." His salary couldn't keep up. He went to his own bank and began collecting loans. First loan, 850K. Second loan, 1.6 million. Third loan, 3.8 million. Because he had to service the loans from his salary came in lighter. His salary eventually dropped to just 38K for a whole month. He started skipping meals. He switched from driving to entering downfall so Maggie wouldn't see his fuel light on. He took Panadol for headaches that never left. At his annual checkup, the doctor frowned. "James, your BP is 160/100. This is hypertension. Are you under stress?" James said, "Small financial stress, doc." The depression crept in next. He would sit in his car after work and not want to go home. He started having panic attacks when his phone rang. Madam Bintu's name on the screen felt like a bill. One night, he couldn't breathe. His chest was tight. He thought it was a heart attack. He drove himself to the hospital at 2 a.m. As soon as he received treatment and he became stabilized, the nurse asked, "Which family member should we call?" James gave the nurse his mother's phone number. His mother rushed in, visibly disturbed as she saw him lying in the hospital bed. James explained in detail all he had been going through at the hand of Maggie and her mother. He told his mother that he was killing himself to maintain a life that wasn't his. Maggie didn't love him. She loved what he could buy. Madam Bintu didn't respect him. She respected his loan limit. He mentioned the loan request. The infinite extravagant demands. The manipulations. His mother was shocked to realize the kind of financial bondage into which Madam Bintu and her daughter had put her son. As from this moment, she said, "You're free to go out there and choose a girl that you truly love and who would also love you. I can see that Maggie is not the kind of girl that would bring you peace of mind." The next morning, after being discharged, he went straight to HR. He restructured his loans. It would take 4 years, but he'd survive. Then he called Maggie. "We need to talk." They met at an eatery. Maggie ordered the most expensive thing on the menu before he could speak. "Babe," Maggie said, "Mommy says we should start looking at houses in Lekki. For our marriage." James slid his phone across. He showed her his salary alert. Then his loan deductions. Then his account balance, 12,340 naira. "Maggie, I'm drowning," he said quietly. "I took loans to make you happy. Now I can't sleep. My BP is high. I'm depressed. I can't do this anymore." Maggie didn't touch the food. She stared at him like he'd slapped her. "So you're saying you're broke?" "I'm saying I was dying to please you." James looked at Maggie. That was it. He stood up, dropped 5K for the food he didn't touch, and walked out. He blocked both numbers that night. 6 months later, James was thinner, but his BP was normal. He was paying his loans, little by little. He was sleeping again. He reconnected with Bola. Every interaction with Bola felt completely different. She spoke about hard work, education, discipline, responsibility. While Maggie dreamed about spending money she had not earned, Bola spent every spare moment earning money for her education. The contrast between Maggie and Bola became impossible to ignore. Then one afternoon, everything changed. James stared at the textbooks in front of Bola. They were large, worn textbooks. Human anatomy, pathology, clinical medicine, pharmacology. He stared at them in disbelief. Then he looked at Bola. "What are these?" For a moment, she hesitated. Then she smiled. "I'm a final year medical student." James was stunned. All this time, while people mocked her as an orange seller, she had been fighting to become a doctor. She explained how she funded her tuition, how she attended lectures during the week, how she studied late into the night, how she sold fruits to support her dream. And in that moment, James realized something profound. The woman everyone considered beneath him possessed more strength, discipline, and ambition than anyone he had ever met. James' relationship with Bola grew by leaps and bounds. James' mother was surprised to learn that Bola, whom she had dismissed as just a roadside fruit seller initially, was a medical student. Soon Maggie and his mother found out that James and his mother had accepted a new girl as James' fiancée, and their reaction was explosive. Maggie was furious. Madam Bintu was outraged. Life has a way of balancing accounts. Without James's salary and bank loans to support their extravagant life, Madam Bintu and Maggie's world started to crack. The champagne turned back to water. Landlords came knocking, hairdressers blocked their numbers, and the Dubai trips became old Instagram memories. The women who once said James wasn't man enough were now selling Madam Bintu's gold to pay for a single room on Lagos outskirts. Their dreams of easy access to money and influence vanished overnight. James pressed on with his relationship with Bola. He felt something he had not felt in months. Peace. Freedom. Clarity. Finally, Bola's induction day arrived. The campus buzzed with celebration. Families gathered. Photographs were taken. Dreams became reality. Among the inductees stood Bola, the same young woman who once sold fruits beneath the hot sun. The same woman people had underestimated. The same woman who refused to quit. As applause echoed across the campus, James stepped forward. His heart raced. His future stood before him. Then, in front of hundreds of people, he dropped to one knee. Gasps filled the air. Bola covered her mouth in shock. James held out a ring. Tears streamed down her face. And before the crowd, he asked a question that would change both their lives forever. "Bola, will you marry me?" Through tears and laughter, she answered, "Yes." The crowd erupted with applause. And standing among them was Aduni, watching silently. Watching the orange seller become a doctor. Watching the woman she once rejected become her son's wife. Watching character triumph over status. Watching humility triumph over extravagance. And finally understanding a lesson many people learn too late. A person's value is not determined by what they own. It is determined by who they are. Because while Maggie wanted someone to finance her lifestyle, Bola was busy building her future. And in the end, James did not choose the richest woman. He chose the richest character. And that made all the difference.